Alright, so welcome back, guys. Once your first time here, I'm Vision here, running to guys in a video. Today we're talking about a topic that I think is an important one due to the fact that the new Reboot series is coming up and being released on Disney Plus. And this topic is one that I don't really want to talk about, but I think it's one that needs to be talked about. And it is, what if the Reboot series fails? Now, if Power Rangers sounds your instant over to hit subscribe and down below, hit that bell icon. This is my Power Rangers content from me moving forward. Now let's begin. So, like I said, this is going to be about what happens if the new Reboot series fails. Because that is definitely a possibility. We've been in a recovery stage for the past 2 years. People always say, oh no, PR's dead. It's been 2 years. Hasbro doesn't care. Hasbro has been making a lot of new moves lately. If you've seen any of my recent videos, definitely go check some of them out. They definitely seem to have a plan now. They are caring more about the franchise now with some of the partnerships and groups they've done with. So, it does seem like PR is on a good track. PR is not dead. They're still doing things with the franchise. If it was dead, you wouldn't be getting the Playmate toys. You wouldn't be doing the Fortnite things. You wouldn't have the Reboot series in the works. It's not dead. And also, if you look at other franchises, just because they're not putting anything out right now doesn't mean they're dead. Ninja Turtles will not put something out for a few years and then return. Does that mean it was dead? Transformers went on hiatus for a few years, then came out something new. Did that mean it was dead? No. Just because a show goes on hiatus doesn't mean it's dead. Yes, there are the arguments that Hasbro didn't care about PR, all that stuff. Again, that was reported 2 years ago. Kind of what they said 2 years ago doesn't, mean that they still feel the same way 2 years later. So, that whole argument is kind of out the window now. So, I know people try to hold on to that argument as hard they can. But again, you got the Reboot series coming out. And again, I will say this till I'm blue in the face, and I say it every time I have to mention it. But the Reboot series is coming. They already booked filming for next year. Again, I will say it till I'm blue in the face. It is coming. You can't just show up on the set that they booked and say, hey guys, we're filming today, move on over. You have to book that in advance, pay for that slot. And then if you don't go through filming, you lose all that money. So the Reboot series, it's a 9.99990% chance that it is happening. There's like a 0.01111 or whatever you want to say chance it's not. They're not going to waste money on that, filming site and then not use it after putting down all that money for it. They'd be taking a huge financial loss and it'd be idiotic. So for the most part at this point, you might want to yell at me and say it's dead. It's not dead, but it's coming. And the big question though is, once it comes, what happens? And if it fails? Now, there are a few possibilities here, and I think that, what happens of it will depend on, again, this all comes down to the consumer, which is us. We have to watch it. If it doesn't do well, it's gone. We have to watch this. And you have to get people that don't watch PR to watch it. This is the biggest issue PR has. It's not Marvel. It's not DC. It doesn't have a built-in fan base. It's a small fan base of people who have stuck around with it for 30 years or however many years you've been with the franchise. It's a small group. Not a lot of adult fans stuck around this long. There are a few of us who did, but it's not like the MCU or DC. It's completely different. We are living in an era right now where, yes, people who grew up, especially like the millennials and maybe some of the early Gen Zers who grew up on PR, might start to have kids who they show PR to. But that's not really what it is. What happens? PR is a thing and a product that has been looked upon as something you watch as a kid. You grow up becoming a teenager, adult. You stop watching and don't care anymore, and you just kind of move on with your life. There's very few adults who stuck around with it for this long. It's not a huge fan base like Marvel or DC has. Also, it doesn't help that Marvel and DC has been around for almost 100 years now, and they have that built-in fan base. But again, PR has only been around 30 years. But we need to look at these facts here. So if it fails, I kind of went on a tangent there. But if it fails, what happens? there are, I think, two possibilities here. One is they just return the Sentai footage and adapting seasons of Sentai footage, or two, it just becomes shelved. Now, here's where I stand. I think that it could go. Again, this is a 50-50 chance right now. Hasbro finally has plans doing something. But again, we don't know how it's going to turn out, and that'll be found out eventually. Also, what we don't know is what the ratings will be. These streaming services, for the most part, don't really say how well their shows do. Yes, they'll say X show or movie will hit the top 10 or was the top 5 most streamed movie when it dropped. But for the most part, they don't release their ratings. So, it's kind of hard to find that information out. I'm sure there is. But a lot of times, even if they do, it's not always correct because it's coming out a few weeks or months later. So it's always skewed. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But again, we're moving back to my two possibilities. One, they go back to adapting Sentai. And I feel like half of the fan base wants that. We know from the reports that we have that Toei isn't being involved in this Disney Plus reboot series, and that most of it is most likely going to be OG, original content. So, if this fails, we most likely will go back to doing Sentai adaptations. I know a lot of fans who are against this whole reboot series not having Sentai footage would like that. But, I think that just would be playing it safe. They might see good work in just the Sentai footage. Maybe the TV show isn't as hot as they expected it to be, and they just go back to what works, and we just continue to get Sentai adaptations. I think it's time to move on from that, so I wouldn't really like that. So, that's where it could end up, just being Sentai footage adaptations for the rest of our lives, or, however long they want to keep it going. B, and the second possibility is they just shelve it. And this is, I think this is the one we don't want to see. Because at that point, PR is basically officially dead. If they shelve it, it most likely goes on hiatus indefinitely until, someone else wants to buy it or dust it off the shelf once, say, one of their other properties kind of dies out. And then they want to bring back PR. That's the main two possibilities. Is it just sits there on the shelf. Maybe we get some kind of toys here and there. Something there maybe it'll just fall into a toy category that we get, and kind of the show moves on and it was pushed away. Maybe it could be a movie thing. Maybe they just decide to try the movies again. There's a lot of things that could happen here if it fails, and this is a risky move for what they're doing with Hasbro. I said this before. The reason Hasbro put the show on hiatus, and I will still argue this to this day, even though people disagree with me, is that it was a re-examining part and trying to figure out how to fix the franchise the past 2 years. They looked at what happened in the past 30 years, what worked, what didn't work, decided, okay, we're going to take what worked, we're not going to do what didn't work, and it was just kind of a restructuring error of PR, where went on hiatus for 2 years, and now they're finally figuring out what they want to do and are moving forward with it. But again, the possibility of it failing is always something you have to think about in the background. It could be good, it could end up failing. And I think there's a third possibility here. I've said this for a lot of times. It depends on, the thing that always it will figure out is what side of the aisle with this one, who ends up being the winner, who ends up being the loser in regards to this Disney Plus and Hasbro team up. Because depending on who it is more profitable for, that's the side that wins and wants to keep the property. So one thing that could be a possibility is if it fails on the Hasbro side of things, Disney buys it out. If you go back, one of the reasons why Disney sold PR was due to the fact that they were acquiring Marvel and wanted to focus on that and not PR. Now, if you look at their current state of things at Marvel, they're kind of I've said it many times, they're in a tailspin, trying to figure out what the hell they're doing, hoping Doomsday and Secret Wars will be their saving grace. That's a 50-50 chance at this point. I know people say that's dead already. I don't believe so. I think they still have a chance. But I think depending on how things go with Secret Wars, maybe they buy back PR. If Marvel is struggling, they might want to have a new IP or franchise to try to focus on and save themselves. And that could be PR. I know there are a lot of people who don't like what Disney has done with Marvel and Star Wars and worry that it might become something like that. But again, I've said this many times, and I said in my last video, PR has always been diverse. It's always been woke. Any word you want to use in regards to that, it's always been that way. It wouldn't be Disney trying to push an agenda. PR has been woke since 1993. If you haven't noticed that, I don't know where you've been. But again, I think those are the three possibilities. The third one more comes down to how it performs with Hasbro and how Hasbro likes the numbers. But again, there's three options here. One, they just return the Sentai adaptations. I know large percent of the fan base would probably just be okay with that. Again, that just kind of feels like a safe kind of like we give up move. And I don't think they should do that. I think they should still continue to try things, even if like it hurts a little bit. And then you got, again, it being shelved. We don't want to see that. The fan base is that'd just kind of be depressing at that point. And again, the third possibility, depending on what the ultimate outcome is Disney buys it from Hasbro. Again, I'm really kind of hoping that happens eventually in the future. Again, a lot of things can happen between now and, 2030 or whatever. We do know Hasbro has renewed the IP license for 10 more years. So that pretty much means they're keeping the franchise through 2035. So maybe Hasbro buys them out of that. Or Disney buys them out of that. I don't know. Again, it all depends. Money talks in all these aspects. So, we'll have to see. But those are just possibilities of what could happen if this fails. If it does well, we're good. We're solid for a few more years. If it does poorly, we might be seeing the, final hiatus for PR for a short time or for indefinitely. But, this all comes down to us. We're the fans. We have to turn out for this. If we want PR to survive, we need to turn out. The general audience, we can't just rely on them. And neither can any of these people. It all comes down to us. If we don't watch, if we don't buy the toys, we don't get them. Because going on the toy basics, it's not Hasbro's fault that the toys are do bad. It all comes down to the fans. Because if the fans don't buy the toys, then the store itself won't buy the toys from Hasbro. So then, that leads to empty shelves. So, it's not Hasbro's fault if the toys do bad. It's our fault. It's our fault. And it's our fault if the show fails because we didn't tune out to watch it. You can't blame Hasbro when it's on you. That's just passing the buck. The buck stops at us. And I'm going to go with that. The buck stops at us. If we don't show up for the show or the movie or whatever they do, then, they're not going to do anymore because we didn't show up. They did what they did. Whether it's good or bad, even if it's bad, we still should support it because if we don't, then the show goes away. I know people say, but then, we're supporting bad amateur content. Yes, that is true to a degree. But you have to at least support it in some way. Otherwise, you risk saying goodbye to the franchise altogether. So sometimes you just got to take a little hit, even if it's something bad, for the long haul. The buck stops at us, like I said. You either show up for the show and movie, support it, or don't, and it goes away. So that's where it stands right now. I don't think it's going to fail. I think it has a solid shot at performing well. Again, we just have to show. But I know your thoughts, opinions. Do you think this show is going to be successful? Do you think it's going to fail? Do you think that they should just return back to Sentai footage? Do you like that they're doing all original footage? Let me know all that good stuff in the comment section down below. So yeah, guys, those are my thoughts, opinions regarding what could happen if the Power Rangers reboot series coming to Disney Plus ends up failing. As always, if you like this video, don't forget a big thumbs up and share. Don't forget to hit subscribe button down below. Hit that bell icon. There's some more Power Rangers content from me moving forward. And go for me on Twitter, which are linked in the section on my YouTube channel. As always, I'm Vision here by Entertainment, and I'll see you next time.